And I can't tell you how happy I am to see all your faces. Now, this is an important issue, and it's really great to have participation. This room is not filled up enough like this in my mind. So I really like to see everybody here. So usually we have to wait till exactly the time that we stated the meeting would start.
You wanted to see a copy of our warrant article.
And we're pretty close to being there. All right, folks, welcome. We are really excited to be here tonight to present to you the situation with the Sleeper Dam and what the Dam Commission has been up to, and give you people a briefing on what's going to have to be done here in the future. I like to have things as informal as possible. If you have a question, just please raise your hand so that we can give you the opportunity to ask it or speak your mind. I'm Jeff Burrell. I represent the town of Sabattus on the Dam Commission. If we just want to introduce ourselves.
Yep. I'm Eric Gagnon. I represent the town of Wales.
Dan Garrett, I represent Sabattus.
Mark Duquette, I represent Sabattus. Lou Moran from Green.
Gary Sokolowski from Wales.
So I'm not sure if everybody's familiar how the commission is set up. It's a three-town commission, Sabattus, Wales, and Green, with representatives from each town, one of the representatives being a selectman from said town. This was formed, I believe, around 2000. Around 2000, there was some issues going on, and the state came in to regulate water levels and things like that. And here we have the commission today. And for a long time, the commission's job was to monitor water levels and water quality, keep an eye on that stuff. Since then, because we exercise control over the dam, that has fallen into our job, I guess you would say. The reason why we're here tonight is that the dam, which was built in around 1860 or so to provide power for the mills in the village, is in a state of disrepair. It needs some work. And we've, over the last few years, we've commissioned an engineer to give us cost estimates and design work on what needs to be done to bring the dam up to standard. Several years ago, we received a letter from the state of Maine advising us that our dam was troubled and that we needed to start looking at making some repairs. And for a long time, that letter kind of fell on deaf ears. I don't think anybody really knew how to get started to do it. So anyways, as the operators of the dam is showing its age. The last time it had any real renovation work was in the early 80s. And since then, it's taken a beat. So here we are today. One of the big things I think that we've been going is trying to have an educational session with each prospective town to let everybody know that we're seeking about $400,000 per town to do the repairs necessary to make the dam functional and safe. Last night we were in Wales, tonight we're here, then July we're going to be in Green. Over the last couple of years, we've had the engineer over there doing some design work, thinking about what this was going to cost. I think we got a good handle on that. We've partnered with
Casey from DMR,
DM.
Department of Marine Resources.
Thank you very much. DMR, there you are back there. I was hoping you'd bail me out here a little bit on your acronyms and stuff, to try to help us fund this. And their interest is putting a fish ladder on the dam at their cost, which would in turn help us pay for the ultimate cost of the rebuilding of the dam. It's not a total replacement. It's a rebuild. One of the things that the state engineer was concerned about was the pinning of the dam. It's a rubble-type dam with a concrete shell over it. And they were concerned that it wasn't pinned to the ledge. And that was on top of a series of other things. We have an engineering report here. If someone would like to take a look at it, they can breeze through and see that it's a troubled dam. As operators of it, trying to get the dam and to control the water level, the gates are, they were put in 1860. They've been repaired and upgraded, but since the wood is expanded and contracted, and it's getting to be more and more difficult to crank it up and lower the gates. So here we are. I think it's going to be very important at town meetings. We wanted to kind of do a little education before we got to a town meeting and get the support of the town to help us fund these repairs. Any questions so far? Sir,
You're putting in a fish ladder in addition to fixing the dam.
correct.
How much is that fish ladder portion of this project gonna cost? If we went without it?
If we went without it, that's why we put the 400,000 per town, it'd be like 1.2 million. If the fish ladder doesn't go, there may be some additional cost on our side because we were splitting mobs and some other, like they help pay for the engineering. They help pay for some other things that will go along with the rebuilding. So our cost may go up, but for the fish ladder, that's all covered through DMR. If you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I think just to clarify, you have a similar question.
Yeah.
I work for the Department of Marine Resources, are funding the fishway part of the work here. And we're not asking the town to pay for any amount of that fishway. We're covering that cost. In addition to that, we've done our best to try to find grants and other things to support this project. And a lot of grants are more likely to support the fishway than dam repairs. It's just the way that grants are sort of out there right now, that there's very few to repair dams themselves. And so in addition to trying to cover costs for our fishway, we're also trying to cover whatever else is reasonable. And so Jeff mentioned mobilization and some of the coffer dams, some of the other things we would have to have there anyway to build the fishway, we're also going to try to cover. So at this point, sort of that's our responsibility. That's what we're trying to do to make it a little bit easier on the towns.
How much of that are you covering, would you say, for that fishway?
Like how much is the actual cost?
Right.
So the fishway itself, we think, and we have a rough estimate from a construction contractor as well as an estimate from the engineer, is around $800,000 for the fishway, and then an additional 300 or so thousand for mobilization and some of those coffer dams.
So that's 1.1 million over and above the almost 2 million that the dam repair is gonna take?
Well, so that 300,000 is either borne by the dam commission if they're going to build the dam on its own, and if we don't have funding at the time to build the fishway, or borne by us if we have time for the fishway. If we have funding at the time, and we can build the fishway.
There's savings for the town by working with them to allow the fish to ladder in. And that's one of the things that we have solicited grants through our elected officials' offices. So we have been knocking at those doors. I mean, it was our dream that maybe there would be some federal fund that would help cover dam repairs, but there's a lot of money for dam removals, but not a lot for dam repairs or upgrades. So
we are still applying for funds to try to get every bit of it that we can actually cover from grant funding. That's a combination of both state and federal, I believe.
hopefully,
And some of those funding opportunities would like to see the towns to have committed money to repair the dam already. So by us going to town meeting, getting this approved, then it will probably help us get some federal funding or some state funding.
The fish ladder, there's another dam further downstream, right on Main Street, right?
Yep.
Fish ladder, how would that?
It's a good question. So this is part of a watershed restoration that we're working on. So starting back in 2019, we removed the dam, first one down in Lisbon, did some mercury cleanup in the river there. It's just downstream of Mill Street. We're also working at the Farwell site just upstream. So that's right next to the Farwell Mill building. That's that large 3-story brick building that's right, historic building that's in Lisbon. Where we're going to remove part of the dam there and build up a fishway adjacent to that. And that's part of a larger project where the dam needs to be sort of repaired or removed in some way, and then they'll do the landfill closure down just downstream. So there's a big environmental cleanup that's associated with that also. And then moving further upstream, the next upstream dam would have been the Upper Town Dam. And that one was also owned by the town of Lisbon. It's just upstream of the Weber Street Bridge. And we removed that one actually in 2022. And then continuing up the watershed, we have designs for the rest and plans to move forward and actually remove those. The one that you're talking about, we actually are hoping to go out and actually move this summer. We're working with the contractor now to get that finalized.
You remove it when?
This summer.
Okay.
You're removing that part of that dam on Main Street?
Is this Green Street also? Is that the same street right there?
No, on Main Street.
So that's the one that has a like sort of open grass area right next to it?
Mhm.
At some point, we will be removing that dam, yes, not this summer.
What are your plans for the one up above that, between the lake and the one you're removing?
That's the one that's dry laid stone, sort of rubble. Yeah, so that's the one we're trying to get to take care of this summer. So removing that and then rebuilding part of the main wall to connect to the bridge that's right there, to connect that bridge.
So this has been in the works for many years. The DMR is trying to restore fish habitat, I guess you'd call it. On our side of it, we look at it as, the quality of life in Sabattus, Wales, and Green, and to maintain the dam that we have to control the water levels. The time has come to do some maintenance on it. It's getting almost, I won't say impossible, but very difficult for us to operate it, to keep the water levels where they need to be. It just, the old system is not working very well. So something has to be done. One of my greatest fears is that during us trying to raise and lower, that one of the gates breaks and we have no control over the water leaving the lake. And then that would create a hell of a mess for all of us that are around the lake. So we're trying to do, and also having the letter from the state, we didn't want to just ignore the state until where they threaten us with a lawsuit or they threaten to open the dam and drain the lake to whatever level it turns out to be. So we're trying to do the right thing and get working on this project to get a resolution. And so here we are. I'm just trying to think where else I need to go with this. If anybody,
The benefit to the townspeople who don't live on the water.
well,
So there's additional tax revenue that those people who own waterfront property pay. So for the town of Wales, it's about $100,000 in additional tax revenue that we generate because we have people who own waterfront property and their tax base is higher. For the town of Green, it was
152.
152,000 in extra taxes, and Sabattus is considerably. I don't remember what, a few hundred thousand. But anyway, so there's additional, that's the benefit to the taxpayers who don't live on the water, is that you're generating more income from those people who own waterfront property. In addition to, like we talked about, the habitat, having the lake as a resource, hunting, fishing, recreation opportunities, as part of our community, I think is a major piece that we need to preserve.
sir,
This has to be approved by all 3 towns.
correct.
What happens if only 2 towns approve it? Do you have sufficient amount of money in 2 towns to do some of the work, or are you just not gonna do it if you don't get 3?
It would get postponed, and we'd have to do some
We're hoping by
work to try and get it done.
coming out here and educating on the people on what needs to be done, that we can avoid that. I mean, part of that interlocal agreement is that we're all responsible for it. all three towns. And I think the commission has worked very well over the years. And I'm going to try to remain optimistic that by coming and explaining to people what we need and why we need it, it's just, it needs to be done. And that'll be enough to get the 400,000 per town. And, you know, nothing would make me happier if we get a federal grant that covers, you know, 90% of this, and we can return some of that money back to the general funds of the town. That's exactly what we would do. We're only looking to fix the issues that need to be fixed. And what we didn't want to happen is, like you've heard on the news in other towns, where the state comes and says, gates up until the dam's fixed, and then everybody in the community is without the water resource, and it turns into a mess. And like I said, and also, if the state is gracious to us, and we're just raising and lowering this thing, every time we do it, I pray that it's gonna work, because, you know, the age of the gates, I'm afraid that they're just gonna break halfway up, and it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be a mess. So here we are. So we'll go back there, sir.
Where, how's the 400,000?
That is up to the individual town. Some town could go to undesignated funds if they have it in the bank. Some are going to bond it along, like if they do with their roads. That's up to the town, each individual town, of how they want to raise the money. So that's, you know, the town managers and the select boards and the people will decide at town meeting. You add it to a bond like you would if you were paving a road, or do you go into your savings account and pull it up? I think that's for the people of each town to decide. And that's where.
So that's nothing that's been decided here, we're in status,
Right.
I'll speak to status, that's nothing that's been decided here.
No, that was gonna be, there was supposed to be a warrant item, and I believe there will be, for actual town meeting. And that's when I think it's gonna be discussed there. But we wanted to just educate you, so people didn't get to town meeting and say, well, what the hell we need this for? So here we are, trying to do the, you know, preemptive education. Go ahead, sir.
The rumor that I've heard is it has to be done or the DPA is gonna breach the dam. Is that a fact?
No, well, not, yes and no. The letter that was sent by the state is telling us, and we have an engineering report, that our dam is in trouble, it needs to be fixed. If we neglect it, which we've been dragging our feet, there's no doubt about it, and the state has been good to us. They haven't come open the gates, but the state can come down and say, this dam is a hazard, and until it's repaired, these gates are staying open. They have the authority to do that.
So right,
Go ahead.
so right now, the state considers that an intermediate significant hazard dam. So there's not a great potential for loss of life if the dam breached, but there is the potential for significant property damage. As you drive 126 by Sturdy Hardware, you can tell when we open the dam, that water almost touches the bottom of that bridge with just two small gates open. So if the dam breached, that bridge would be gone, no doubt about it. And continue, I mean, the sewer district would probably be, no, would be fine. You'd be fine. Well, but it would surge.
Oh, yeah.
So it would cause damage downstream. So that's, they have the authority that if they wanted to, they could come in and order us to open the gates.
You know, a lot of the landowners around the lake are more concerned about the quality of the water in the lake than they are about this dam being breached.
Yep.
So what is happening with the quality of is the DPA stepping in and doing anything? They monitored it all summer, I know that.
Well, it's actually not the state that's monitoring it. For the longest time, the Dam Commission actually monitored the
Yeah.
water quality. And then we started focusing on more this side of what we needed to do. And Bates College took over some of the monitoring, and USGS has been doing some monitoring now. There's a watershed partnership that's been created now, and they're working on certain things. And this is not just a repair of the dam, but an upgrade. So in these upgrades, it's going to allow us to control water level better.
Great lead on bringing this in onto the,
Yeah.
when the dam is fixed, and I'll let you take it from
Yep.
there on the skimming.
Yep, so if you look at page, so on your page, it's gonna be page 2, or page 3. It's C102 on the bottom is the drawing. So if you look on the left side, you're gonna see there's two 13-foot skim gates. So when algae blooms, we can actually slowly lower those gates to skim off the top of the water.
Left side of the dam, but right side of the page.
That was supposed to be
Right,
happening.
sorry, yeah. So right side of the page, I don't know my left from my right. So there's two 13-foot skim gates. That's gonna help us skim the water to help improve water quality. The new gates are gonna allow us to control water so much better than we are now. I know a lot of people, last night complained about that water's been high or water's been low. And that's because we are using an archaic system, and every one of us dreads having to go out there, you know, when we hear we're gonna get a 4-inch rainstorm, and then the text goes out, because you can't go out there one person and open that dam right now. You've gotta be at least 3-4 people. So this is gonna make a significant improvement on us operating the dam, but also give us the ability to work hand in hand with the watershed people to try
I
and help.
can't see why the state wants to put in a fish ladder into this lake. Fish aren't gonna live. The way the lake is polluted now, 20 years ago, they might have. I've been on the lake 67 years, so.
Well, right now, the state does stock it with alewives every year. And
Years,
those would actually come back through the fish ladder at a certain point. And then, I mean, Casey can elaborate more on what they anticipate to happen with the fish ladder and what species.
For them to put in $800,000 for a fish ladder, there's gotta be some payback here somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, so the big things for this is, if I could take a brief moment to talk about alewives in general, is that we want a few of them to get into the lake, and that's what we do every year. We stock them, but that requires us to take them from the fishway down in Brunswick, drive them up here in a truck, and drop them into the lake every single year. And when we're doing that, we're grabbing whatever fish are at the Brunswick Fishway. They're not necessarily fish that came from Sabattus Pond, but it could be. There's other places in the watershed we stock.
The pike level.
But, so once we stock them into the Sabattus Pond, then a bunch of them out migrate down to the ocean and hang out in the ecosystem, the marine ecosystem, for 2 or 3, 4 years before they come back up. And the big reason why we're doing this, why it's really important, is not just having a few alewives in the lake. You know, we think that that's important too for the resident fish that are there. Loons and other things that are around there also eat juvenile alewives while they're in there. Beagles love to eat the big alewives when they come back, but it's also really important for sort of everything else in between and all the stuff out of the ocean. So this is a big project that we're working on here and a bunch of other places in the state to make sure that we're supporting the lobster industry through alewives that come back, as well as all the cod that are out in the marine ecosystem. So it's bigger than just right here in the pond.
And go ahead back there. I could just see a hand. There you go.
Yeah. With regard to the quality of the water and the alewives, you wouldn't hear juvenile alewives are so sensitive to feeders. And so sensitive to feeders, I'm quite sensitive So how exactly is that not going to be addressed in the issue?
It's a good question to run into this a lot, actually. So alewives are absolutely zooplankton eaters. It's a little bit more complicated than just they eat all the zooplankton that eat the algae that's in the lake. In most lakes, what we actually see alewives do is they're eating zooplankton and other things, and then when they leave as juveniles, they're taking some of that phosphorus that they've consumed. And phosphorus is what's really driving the algae growth in the lake. They're taking it out with them. And so we see that there's net export of phosphorus, which is what's causing a lot of the growth in the lake in some of these ponds. So Togus Pond is another great example where we introduced alewives, reintroduced them after they were extirpated there for more than 200 years, and that was with the cooperation of the Lake Association there. They just did an alum treatment because they're also dealing with the same phosphorus issues. But we introduced them for the same reason there, that we're looking at alewives as one of these native species that have been in lakes or had been in lakes before dams were put up, as part of that ecosystem. And we really do see in general in lakes that they're in there and they're helping, not helping as much as some of the big watershed improvements like keeping erosion control and other things like that at hand. but helping with some of those sort of long-term legacy impacts.
Sure, and how did you determine that they had historically been in the lake by historical records or core sampling?
So most of the time it's historical records. Occasionally we've gone out and actually done environmental DNA, like historical DNA, so you dig into the sediments and you take out things. But most places we're relying on reports from the early 1800s of the Fisheries Commission at that time. They did a really good job of going around to a number of different watersheds and specifically doing that, just identifying what fish are there, what time of year, and how many. Well, generally how many, but most of them we're talking about fish you can walk across the most of our rivers. That many.
And are you planning to do any sort of monitoring to see what the effect is of a larger population?
That's a good question. At this point, the Dam Commission has asked that we don't allow the population to increase, so we stock a certain number. At this point, the Dam Commission has asked that we don't allow more than that number to come back. For us, I think that that's honestly still okay for this point. I think it's a careful walk. We want to make sure that we're not going to hurt the health of any pond that we're introducing alewives into. That's would be sort of the showstopper of us being able to do this work anywhere in the state. And so at this point, we're happy to sort of be careful with that. And I say that because one of the really big benefits to this is not just it coming back to alewives coming back to Sabattus Pond. What we really want is alewives to come back to the Interscoggin watershed. And so
you're going to be working on other lakes that are directly connected to the Interscoggin as well for the
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have agreements with some of the hydropower owners on the Little Interscoggin, which is sort of the next step in some of the restoration of the watershed. Absolutely.
Bill, go ahead.
Is the state 100% committed on doing this?
We are, yes.
Because I've been hearing about this for 10 years when I was on the Dam Commission.
I think that people that I've worked with have been working on this for like 40 years. There's a big thing that changed, which is that there was a company that owned a number of the small dams on the
So if
Sabattus
the
River.
three towns commit to fix the dam, the state is gonna do it.
Absolutely.
They've got the money.
Well, we're working on it, but I feel very positive that we will have the money by the time the towns do too.
So what
Like
part-
us, we're
Same
working
as
on
we
the
have the
money.
money, right?
What
Yeah,
part
we're
does the
working on it.
DEP have to do with this? Any part of it?
No, DEP is not anything.
They're not involved at all.
Besides, I mean, I think that they also do general water quality testing in Sabattus Pond, but beyond that, they're not
They're not.
directly involved.
But they're the ones that I heard would breach the dam.
They're not actually, I was just gonna say that. So Jeff says the state, and I feel a little bit taken back because I work for the state, but
Sorry.
there's different agencies. The Maine Emergency Management Agency is the agency that has its federal regulations that are passed to them for dam safety. And they're the ones that gave the letter that said the dam needs repairs.
Yes, sir.
Is this, the width or the length span of the dam gonna change at all? Is it gonna be bigger than it is now to take up?
Good question.
That's a good question.
Take
So,
up private
Yes.
property?
yep, so if you look at that same page and look on the right side again, where you'll see that the east spillway, that extends a long way. It's like 180 feet in that direction, because right now, there's a chance that water could reach on that side and erode that whole side, because that's just soil on that side. So they're actually gonna excavate a trench and put concrete to the bedrock there
Town of
and pin
Sabattus.
it on the, yeah, that's on the town,
That's town
that's
property?
Yeah.
town property on that side. And then on the west side, that's gonna extend another, I can't remember if that's going another 20 feet or so. I can't remember exactly.
There'll really be kind of minimal impact on the neighbors, if any, of where this comes up onto any private property. so to speak. So,
Yeah, but I'm just trying to think of where it ends now, because that's 25 feet new. And that's ending.
what they didn't want is, they didn't want the water level to get high and run around the dam, so you have to build up the side. Because right now, if you go up there, you can see when the water gets higher, it flows over the top and goes right around the side of it. And that is very dangerous for a dam, causing erosion. I mean, it's on ledge on part of it, but that was a big concern, that the sides of the dam get eroded and then the dam cave in.
So roughly, it's probably gonna be 20 feet, just using elevation lines
on the private side.
on the private side.
On the town of Sabattus, someone had bought years ago, I guess, the lot that accesses the dam.
But correct me if I'm wrong, that's not an issue because everything goes by a high water mark, right?
But yeah, it's because you all also, you go out to talk to that property owner. last week.
Right,
Yeah.
we have talked to that property owner and there's no issues on that.
He let us use, it was easier to access, we had to access his property to do borings from on that side. And the gentleman and his wife were wonderful, and there was no problem, no real impact on his property. And we told him we'd keep him advised of the process. And I think they would, they know we're trying to do the right thing, so they were very cooperative. Yes, sir.
Is there gonna be any increase, Jeff, in water elevation?
No,
No? Okay, so, but is the dam gonna be, the gate's gonna be mechanically operated or electric?
absolutely. They're gonna be, we'll be able to take a drill,
Right,
go
yeah.
up and
Yeah.
open them and close them. That way, there's gonna be more gates. You got the skim gates. There's gonna be a lot more control
Yeah,
and safety. I'll be quite honest, if anybody's been to that dam when the water's going over the top, and, if you fall on the water side, okay, you're probably gonna be okay, but on the backside is an 8-foot drop onto a bunch of ledge. And so it's not, safety-wise, it's not safe at all for us to go on it and operate it. And it's been done that way since 1860, so, but it's getting to the point that the age is starting to be scary, because years ago, one person could go out there and raise and lower the gate. Now, because it requires so much cranking, we're using wedges to push it's got teeth on a piece of timber, and, we have to wedge it to get them to go, to get the gate up. It really, I hate to use this, it's a shit show out there every time we have to raise it. And so we're just trying to, it'll give more control. The skim gates will allow us to, drain off the top a little easier to skim it. And safety will be a much better for everybody involved in it.
And safety goes beyond that too, because we're doing work to it, we're actually bound to increase and follow the current standards. So the 500-year flood is taken into account in the design, and even the 1,000-year plan, it's all designed to modern standards.
This would probably be, I would feel safe to say, the biggest upgrade this dam has had since it was built. So, there was a question back there, ma'am? It's been answered, okay, thank you.
This is a weird one, but your flyer that you sent out brought it up.
Yeah.
If for some reason this whole dam goes away.
Yeah.
And the lake is drained down to, I think you said 8 feet deep, a little channel running through, used to be the Dead River.
Yeah.
What happens to all the properties on that waterfront?
The value
Just
of
out of
them,
curiosity.
it's very simple. I mean, nobody will have lakefront property. The people on the green side and that,
What happens to the property that they gain? I'm guessing they would gain property if all that water goes down.
That's a legal question that I'm not gonna even touch.
yeah,
I mean,
probably-
that's gonna turn, because right now, the water is owned by the state. The body of water is
It's
technically.
owned by us, really. I mean, everybody in here, but it's a public access use. I do not know what would happen. I imagine it would be marsh is what I would think it would turn into. It would be a wet, soggy area full of, nasty grass and other things that you don't want to talk about.
From places where we've worked with property owners to remove small dams, in general, how it works is that your property would then extend to the water's edge to the next high water line, which obviously is going to drop if you remove the dam. In this case, I think it would be really messy because you have so many properties that are abutting each other that if you draw that line out, in some places it's 300 feet until you touch water. Drawing those lines gets really tough, right? So it's messy. It's not something that any of us are
We haven't really,
ever wanting to go through.
Theoretically, you gain property.
Theoretically, I think, again, it depends on what your deed says, it depends on a bunch of other things in there, but in most cases, if your deed says to the high water line, to the edge of the water, then yes. But some people's deeds don't say that.
Go ahead, Renee, was that you raising your hand?
So, unfortunately, this is a natural resource that needs to be protected somehow, some way. And, you know, when we're asking, you know, if the dam's gonna, you know, we're gonna open it, we're gonna lose all the water. We have a major issue going on right now with all people's property being eroded. And I haven't been involved in a long time, but I can tell you, and I know that there's a couple other people here that, their parents were involved. I remember when May Farm was dumping into the river, and actually my father and a couple of other people that are here, his father was instrumental in trying to clean up the lake, and we cleaned it up. But for the last, I want to say maybe 6 years, 7 years, the erosion on the green side is unbelievable. And I, you know, haven't really been on a boat to go out to look at the lake. The other issue we have is that I'm sure people that are on the lakeside at nighttime, that the lights go on and you get little aqua bugs that are showing up and they're all over your property, and you have to shut your lights off, which we've never had at Sabattus Lake, because water's staying up so high and we're having stale water. So, you know, instead of us talking about, you know, worrying about putting fish and everything else, this is the 3 towns to get together to come up with a plan, to come up with money is going to be challenging. Because if we look, I mean, how many properties, the board must know, how many properties do we have that are actually on the lake in Sabattus, Green, and Wales? Do we have an idea?
I
About
can't-
300.
Yeah. I mean,
Roughly.
About 300.
Roughly 300.
So I don't know if they still have the Sabattus Lake Association, which was, you know, established way back when. But I'm sure people that are sitting in here that live on the lake wouldn't mind paying, you know, a small assessment to the town of Sabattus, like we used to do, you know, years ago to help with the maintenance of the dam or something. But I don't see where, if you look at what the graphics are, there's really not a lot of property of, you know, camp owners or homeowners on the green side. It's more on the Sabattus side. So somehow, some way, somebody's gonna have to bite the bullet and do something to protect this natural resource. I was involved, when I was on the city council in Lewiston with the No Name Pond, and that was, you know, almost the same thing. Look at it today. I mean, it's doing wonderful, they're doing rooms, they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. If we don't do something in Sabattus Lake, we're gonna end up, I mean, this is more than serious, more than serious. And I go on the green side, come to Nason's Beach and take a look at the mess that's occurring. And I recently just got back in that contract account to take a look at it. I'm looking at design work that's gonna cost a lot of money, just to put in a seawall. It was $120,000. I've got to do something because the road where Nason's Beach is, there is a private boat launch, it used to be a public beach. When water was so high, and I understand that, you know, the climate's changing, we're getting a lot of water, but that water from Sabattus Lake was almost halfway up to that driveway. It has never happened. And I've lived on that lake since I've been a kid. So I know a lot of history about Sabattus Lake, but, I mean, to have meetings and talk to Green and talk to Wales and who's gonna do it, unfortunately, there's got to be some funds somewhere. Or Sabattus, if the dam is here, somebody needs to bite the bullet and own it and do something. And if it means assessments on people, then that's what we need to do.
I think,
Well, the dam commission was formed by the 3 towns to do exactly what we're doing. So the 3 towns bit the bullet and said, this is what we're doing. The only way to fund it is exactly the way we're funding it, is that the 3 towns need to step up and do it. That's what they agreed to do back in 2000.
Right,
So
but
that's the process. And I get your point of erosion, and to speak to that, there is someone here from the Watershed Partnership that was just formed. So there is an organization that is working on some of the issues you're talking about. What we can address that you've talked about with the dam is the high water, and a lot of that is because we don't have the control that we need to have when we get big rainstorms right now to keep the water level. We cannot get enough water level out of, or enough water out to control that.
And I understand that. I'm not putting blame on the dam commission saying, listen, I know the dam. I remember we used to have an old man go out there and open the thing and watch the levels. I know all about it. But what I'm saying is that I'm sure that Green and Wales, this is gonna have to go through their budget committee and through town votes or that sort of stuff.
It's got to do that in every town.
every town, and
So
it's,
that's why I'm saying, so you're dealing with 3 towns, you're dealing with people in Green, I'm on the Green side, you're gonna be dealing with people in Green, that don't have a place on the property, and they're like, they're gonna say, it doesn't affect me, but it's a natural resource for everybody to put the mentality.
Right, but it does affect you because it generates an additional $150,000 of tax dollars in green. It generates another $110,000 in tax revenue that affects the person not on the water.
I understand that, but some people don't.
Correct, which is why we're doing these meetings.
Okay. Well, hoping being, trying to educate people on why we need to get it done. I mean, like I said, every time we get a 4-inch rainstorm, we are all just like, oh my God, because we're really worried about trying to get those gates up at this point and one of them failing, and then we have zero control. So, here we are, and we're gonna keep doing outreach. Everything you said, we agree with 110%. This new dam will give, you could tell the age here, there's gonna be younger people at some point, they're gonna have to manage this dam, and it's gonna be a hell of a lot easier than what we've gone through to try to keep things where they need to be, so.
And I do want to touch on the funding piece, is that I know we're asking the towns to do this now. Like we said when the meeting first started, or at some of the beginning, we have looked at a lot of grants. With Casey, how many of you filled out?
Probably 10 over the last
10
years.
that we're trying to get money that way. We've applied for the Susan Collins, but unfortunately the town of Sabattus had already gotten money from her, so she didn't want to give twice to the same community. We've applied for that again, but talking to those people, they'd like to see the towns commit some money before they actually grant us some funding. So that's why for us, it's a push to get it on the warrants, get the townspeople to vote on it at their town meetings. And the point of these meetings is to educate so that we can dispel those myths, those rumors, and to let people know this is the plan and this is what this project will help do.
Sir, yes.
Time frame that you'd be, that any of this, is there
If we get the,
hope,
if
or
we-
anything like that?
if we can secure the funds, we're hoping to start construction next summer. And if the funds become, for some reason, get delayed, it would have to be, we can only work in the water from July to November. Of course, that's affecting the prime time of year for the lake, but, we need to get this done sooner than later before we have a failure where we have no control. And that's really the reality of it. It's not something that, if it ever came to it that we had to go it alone to fix this, it really, folks, it's gonna have to happen, or we're gonna have a hell of a mess.
So Green's town meeting is the last town meeting to happen. If Sabattus and Wales approve it and Green approves it, we are prepared right now to send it out to bid. So that the contractors can bid on it, it can get awarded, and it can be put in their schedule for next summer.
Design work is done, as you can tell, and just so, the state did help fund some of that design work,
And
which we appreciate, by the way, thank you.
that summer, so just keep in mind, that summer will start an early drawdown because they only have a certain, excuse me, we don't want to drag it out for more than 1 year. So that summer, we're going to start an early drawdown, early July, and start drawing the water down so that they can start work as soon as possible. So that summer, the water is not going to be as enjoyable for the people on the water to use because it is going to drop down significantly for them to be able to do their work.
It also would be a good time, and I'm gonna say this, that anybody that has erosion problems, if they abut the lake, that would be a good time to have a lot of that work done, because the lake is gonna be drawn down probably to one of the lowest levels it's been in a lifetime.
And when, I just want to clarify, if all the approvals are met, then you're really proposing to start the drawdown in 25.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would take how long to completion?
Done by November.
The water work is done by November, then they'll still have some work out of the water to do. But
We've talked with the engineer, we're trying to, and when we put it out to bid, is have all the in-water work done in that short period of time. So we are gonna affect one season, and there may still be some work going on, but the next spring, water levels would go back to normal. That's the ultimate goal. So,
There's really two things that are hemming you on either side for the actual work, and one of them is working in winter and doing concrete pours after it's freezing. So that's sort of the end of it that should be done before there. So what they're asking for at this point is drawing down the lake. It'll probably take, I think, Dan, you said 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So if you start in July to draw it down, it's still gonna take 6 weeks to actually get it down. So it'll be a while before it totally disappears from your dock, but at some point it will. And really that's sort of after spring rains, so that everybody gets a little bit of time on the water, and then the engineer or the contractors be able to go in and actually do work in the dry before it freezes in the winter.
you had a question, Dan?
Yeah, just a question from online from somebody. I know that, right, funding's a big issue, grants, stuff like that. And a few people have mentioned it in here, water quality, and we all know the water quality of the lake. Somebody was wondering online if the commission or the towns have given any thought to potentially dredging some of the bottom of the lake when it is drained to get rid of the soil that contains phosphorus.
In a perfect world, I would love to say yes, but at this point, if I can just get the dam functional and fixed, that's the best I can do. I think that we can do at this time. I wish we could get a grant to take care of all kinds of different things, but this is the emergency in my mind right now, this dam. And that's where our focus will remain until the project is fixed.
I think to get back to a question earlier, somebody asked if DEP was involved. I know that DEP is working with, I think, the Lake Association to update the lake management plan to try to actually improve on lake quality, lake water quality. And I say this because I reached out and asked, do you have a current plan? And there is a plan for the lake, but it expired in 2017, I think it was. And so they said that they're working on updating that plan. And I think that that's a good point to bring in someone from DEP to specifically ask if there's an opportunity when the lake is drawn down for them to do something, if there's funding to do that.
Ma'am, you had another question back there?
First, it's going to be a big pull to get but otherwise, if the water level is going to be very, very low, as we were discussing, has there been any thought about pursuing 319 money for watershed work, erosion control, culvert updates, things of that nature? It's going to be down. That would be opportune time to do this one.
I agree with you.
That would be something that the watershed project is looking into.
Right, that's outside of
Outside of our
purview.
Renee, you got something?
Yeah, I just have a couple more questions. So, one is that, your complete board going to be going to the, going to be represented at the meeting, they're going to be putting meetings.
Yes, yep. Same thing we've done in Wales and here, we will be doing in Green. We've encouraged anybody in Green that has questions, please reach out. All of us are willing to take calls. And we're trying to do the education piece, so when we get to town meetings, people are informed on what that item will be.
Because I'm not so sure, I had a conversation, with some people in Green in the town office, and they really, wasn't clear, but they weren't sure, just knowing that, obviously a dam issue, and that was the extent of what the individuals knew, which is a little concerning to me. Let's say we have, a new dam, you're regulating it, where do you plan on keeping these levels?
We currently are working off of the water level order that was done back in 2000. So that states that the water level is supposed to be maintained at the height of the west spillway.
I think you're gonna find with the new dam, we'll be able to manage this water level a hell of a lot better. I mean, every time we go to turn one of those gates, I mean, we're paranoid because we're afraid that it's gonna break. So I think, in the times when we're starting to get 3-inch rainstorms, 5-inch rainstorms, it's taking a lot more management to keep the water levels where they need to be. And it's also one of those things, we'd probably regulate it more if we felt comfortable that we wouldn't break a damn gate.
And my last question is, just to follow up on, the recommendation to do, soil, erosion type thing. I work with Andrew Scott in, soil and conservation, and they came up and did a bunch of planning, put a lot of riprap through the whole thing. But the amount of water levels that this has been creating, all that is washing away. So the planning and everything that was done, so my suggestion at this point for people to even do that kind of erosion work until the dam is fixed, you're wasting your money because you can see all the damage and all the plants and Androscoggin and conservation and then planted on our property. So it's really kind of a waste of time, even though the water's down, you're gonna start planting, it's just a mess.
Yeah, I think to that point, that there's one thing that's really important to recognize, which is that last year was crazy. And maybe we'll have other years like last year that were that wet. But I think what the dam commission's been trying to tell you is that especially last year, they couldn't keep the water levels down enough. And when we saw that, we had potential plans were gonna be downstream, we decided not to because it was.
No, and I understand that, but this work was probably done about, probably 7, 8 years ago. So it's just all washing away. So,
And the rainstorms we're getting, I mean, I'll be honest with you, in my lifetime, you know, to get 3 to 5 inch rainstorms in one whack, it's scary. The windstorms we're getting, I mean, things are changing. And this project to me is a must do. It's not, it needs to be done, you know? So go ahead.
Mark, I didn't stay for the whole warrant meeting last week. This is gonna be on our town meeting warrant?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Dave.
A couple questions. Number one, you've mentioned a few times about being able to control the water a lot better. And I know somebody mentioned in here with low-lying areas and the height of the water, and we all know that. Question online again, that low-lying spot, and you say you can control the water much easier. And I know the gates are going to be wider and there's going to be more gates. How much faster, do you know, is there a scientific math formula with the depth of the gate, with the water, how much faster you'll be able to draw them down if we do get another season like we had last year when we got 87 feet of rain?
I'm sure the engineer, well, I mean, the engineer has already told us, like, because of the fishway, we're bound to flow enough water for Sabattus sanitary district. So the engineer has designed the fishway to flow the minimum amount up to what it can flow, 60 to 80 CFS. So he will be able to tell us, opening the gates here, this is what it's gonna flow. Opening your spillway gates this much, this is what you're gonna flow. So it's going to be a learning adventure for those of us on the dam commission as this project goes forward and he starts telling us how all this works and
You guys are
how to
the
set stuff.
Kentucky windage, that's what has to happen, like, last time the gates were open, I saw one of the texts that went through, it drained a foot in
About a week.
about a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how we just kind of,
But in a lot of it too, again, with the condition of the dam, I mean, if we open and close it, I mean, it takes a week to rest up to go back and do something else. And it's not taking a 12-volt drill and, you know, so in that portion of it, you know, we can anticipate rain and drop it and then be able to raise it up after the rain is done or if the forecast is wrong. Whereas now, yeah, it's a commitment, it's a workout.
yes.
Just had one more question from online. Somebody's wondering what we can do in this process, and I'm assuming that means supporting the town, but what else can we do other than supporting the towns to pass this money for the dam to be built to help the dam commission in the future? I'm assuming is what the question is.
I would say this, I think that right now, the most important thing for people to be doing is spreading the word on why this is necessary. And the benefits, I mean, it benefits all of us in the community. And we need people to get out to town meeting and vote to get this done. And, you know, water quality, I mean, there's so many factors. And I think, and I never really realized that, is how all these water bodies, they're like veins in the body, they're all connected and they all affect each other. And so, you know, my thing would be go out, educate people on why it's necessary to go to town meeting and support this rebuild. And in the future, I mean, to get involved, if you own property on the lake, you know, learning how to control your erosion issues and things like that will help the water quality. And also for people to get involved. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've been on several years. Most of the individuals here have too. I'm hoping more people will want to do these jobs and volunteer. You you know, I can't stress enough, I love to see everybody here. Please spread the word if you have questions. You know, none of this is a perfect science. I mean, we're playing with the water levels, trying to get things right. But this is gonna give us a lot more control than we've ever had with this dam. So, go ahead.
Yeah, people hear the number 400,000 and it scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there's more ways than paying out 400,000 that we can do this project. I mean, we could bond it. You could
Right.
bond it for 6 years, 8 years,
Yeah.
10 years. That would be $40,000 a year,
Right, I agree.
which is no impact at all
And
on individual taxes.
I want people to understand, the commission felt that it wasn't our job to try to tell the town how to fund this mechanism. All we felt our job was to come educate you, how the town, I mean, some towns may have it in savings account, they can write a check, others will bond it. You know, if you're bonding $1 million worth of road repair, and you threw this in, it's not really gonna be that big an issue. But the impact of this is huge.
I just think
Unmeasurable.
people hear that number and they get, whoa, wait a minute,
Yeah.
400,000, that's an impact to my taxes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a resident of
Sure.
Sabattus. I think that bonding would be the best way to handle this.
Yeah.
I'll express that at town meeting. And like I said, I think that'd probably be the best way to do it, but, you know, each of the individual town has their own way of doing things, and we thought it best to educate and say, listen, it's your, you know, your job to figure out how you would like to do this. We just appreciate the support, and it needs to happen.
What's the interest right now, Mark, on bond?
I think the budget committee and the board went with a 5-year bond.
Right.
At $77,000 a year, and it ranged from, it starts the first year at 3.1%,
Yeah.
down to 3%, 2.9%,
It keeps-
2.78. So it's gonna cost us a total of $417,000.
Yeah.
Out of a 385, so $32,000 worth of interest.
And the town of Wales is doing the same exact thing. Our interest rates, I don't know if we're at the same bond bank, but our interest rates are gonna be similar to that. So I've got our town of Wales warrant articles, been written by the attorney, so it's right there. And I'm not sure what Green means.
We have the
I
break.
think Green, talking to Carol, I'm pretty sure she reached out to, the bond bank you guys use. And then the selectmen told me they were fine with the warrant article, so I'm assuming that.
The design is right here, so after the meeting, if anybody will, we'll leave it up here for a few minutes. We're gonna stay here. Any questions, please come up if you're afraid to speak in public. And you can look at the plans. There's no secrets here. So, folks, anything you wanna know, and, you know, we'll be happy to share with you. So,
You kind of just touched on it, but can you explain it a little bit more, the bond issue? There's a question online. If you lose $152,000 in green in less than 3 years, it'll be paid back. But obviously that tax money goes to other interests in each individual town to pay all the bills. Can you just explain that bond issue for people who may not be completely familiar with it, if you don't mind? It's basically like a low interest loan for the town.
Correct.
That is paid back over a set amount of years. It sounds like Sabattus is 5 years and you're going to do 5 years as well. But it can be extended for
some
a longer
10,
period of
15,
time.
20, 30, I mean.
Right, you have to tell the bond bank what you want for a term, and then that's what you're locked in at. So it's up to each select board to decide how much of an impact it's gonna have on the taxes for the next 5 years, 8 years, 10, whatever term you take. So yes, it's gonna increase taxes for the 5 years, but then that bond will drop off.
But 40,000 per year. So it's, you know, it's not all hitting at one time, it's stretched out. So, you know, if you look at your mill rate, you know, what's the effect of $40,000 per year on a mill rate? And it's probably pretty minimal. But like I said, we felt as this board, it was the town's job, you know, to figure out how they would like to do that. And we just appreciate the support, because this needs to be done. Yes, sir.
I think we're remiss not to thank the commission for all the work you folks have done on this and bringing it forward to us so we can get educated. And we really appreciate all the work that you put into this.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much. This has not been an easy, if you would have told me when I signed up for this, and I'd be, learning about dam construction. It's been an education, and it's something that really needs to be done and has to be done. It's the infrastructure of the community that affects all three communities. And so it's important work. I'll be happy when this is done, and other people can sit here and like I said, then they can focus on water quality, water levels. I mean, this has been all consuming because and like I said, it's getting to be very, very difficult to manage the water levels and to open and close this. It is a safety thing.
I do appreciate you saying that, because this project under one town would have been very easy to do, but because it's a 3-town interlocal agreement, the number of times I've had to call the attorney or talk to attorneys or get guidance on how to proceed is tough, because it is an interlocal agreement and they need to tease out what the best course of action actually is. So it's been an animal.
So anyways, we're gonna, okay.
I got one more
Yeah, go
question.
ahead.
Has the state done anything about if we lose the dam, what it'll do to the fish population and the amount of people that come into town to fish?
We haven't. We actually had some really good questions about that in Wales last night. One individual runs the Facebook group for the Sabattus
Right.
Pond Fishing Club,
Yeah.
and somebody else was there who used to work with the pike
Because
derby.
I know like the corner store gets a ton of people on the weekend ice fishing and, sturdy stuff, everybody's coming into town to fish. And without the lake at the level that we've maintained, there'd hardly be any water left in it.
Yep. Yeah.
So it
you're
would
right.
have to affect the fish population.
It would change the habitat for sure. And the individual last night was really clear about that he didn't live on the lake. He
Right.
comes in and fishes, and that's the way that it's really an important resource for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got economic impact.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
I mean, just look at what the boosters do with their tournament. I mean, they raised $40,000 in that one day.
And I dare say it's a quality of life issue.
Yeah.
And we're all living in small towns for a specific reason, in my opinion. It's sometimes more costly to do that, but.
Yes, sir?
There used to be fish gates. They've been gone for quite a few years. Is the new dam gonna have fish gates so the fish cannot escape?
You're showing your age now.
There is? We want to save those big pike to eat these salmon. Come on.
Well,
Maybe the alewives will entice the pike to stay in the lake.
But there used to be fish gates.
There are no fish gates.
That's been a contention for a while. The gates have been gone for years.
Well, the gates
And
get
what
run
happens
into
to
with
fish
a lot of
population?
logs and a lot of floating docks and a lot of, fish gates are not easy to manage.
No.
all right, sir.
Is there any, insurance that Sabattus, or other towns, or all of them have to pay on the dam now? And, and if so, would that potentially go down with the newer dam and the high quality?
I don't believe there's insurance. That's,
There's gotta be some.
I don't know, that's something I'll have to look into.
Yeah,
I
haven't heard
Some type of
anybody.
insurance, some type of insurance, because the town of Sabattus owns the dam, so. there's gotta be
I would
some-
imagine that it would be somewhat insured. I mean, if the dam blew out like you're talking
Yeah.
about, there's some
Well,
definite liability.
I'm gonna share something with you that I know about insurance companies. Lack of maintenance on your part is not an emergency on theirs. And this is a clear lack of maintenance on this meeting. So, yes, sir. Oh, ma'am.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I can see a hand and parts of the head, but
Is there a natural chance of breach of this dam without you even touching it? Is it that kind of emergency that if we get one more of these big fat 5-inch rainstorms, that it could breach itself and blow out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The dam flows over the top to relieve pressure all the time as it is. So,
flows to the side.
And around it.
yeah, and around the sides.
And through it.
Right.
As the report says, there's a lot of leakage, which helps to some extent.
Right, from a major collapse.
And like we were talking about, people were talking about high water, and last summer it was over the top of the dam all summer.
All summer.
We could not get it below the top of the dam, or we'd get close and then we get another rainstorm and it was flowing back over the top of the dam again. So
Ready, because it's starting again this year.
Yeah, but Mondays are really nice so far.
So there's always, I mean, that's the tough part is the state doesn't know whether it's pinned and we don't know whether it's pinned. So there is that chance with the experience that we've got on this board and what's happened in the past. The dam hasn't necessarily moved or shown signs that could happen, but I mean, if you look on YouTube and watch dam failures, there's no sign until it happens.
I personally believe that you'll have a gate failure or a multiple gate failure, and then the water is just gonna flow that way. And then there'll be no control until it gets to a certain level where repairs can be made. But, ideally, like I said, to control the water level is getting to be, I'm not gonna say almost impossible, but very, very difficult. So, all right, the plans are here, if anybody wants to see the big prints. And we appreciate everybody's support, you coming out, pass the word. Renee, you got something? You got the last word, don't you? Okay.
So, I just want to understand, the dam is owned by the town of Sabattus, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, if Wales and Green say that they're not, I know you don't want to give us, and I don't want to.
Oh, that hurts.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
If they don't want to do it, and
Yeah.
it's owned by the town of Sabattus, does that mean that everybody around the lake that wants to get this dam done will have to sue the town of Sabattus to get the dam done?
Well, there's an interlocal agreement in place. So the interlocal agreement at that point would be violated. There are penalties to each town that violates the interlocal agreement, paid to the towns that did not violate the interlocal agreement. And then you'd have the fact that becomes null and void, the dam would revert back to the town of Sabattus. And then I'm sure the town of Sabattus would be suing the town of Green and Wales, or whoever didn't pass it. It could end up in a mess. And
The dam is controlled by all three towns.
No, I know.
Yeah, technically, it sits in Sabattus.
It sits in Sabattus,
Right.
who's the owner of it?
Sabattus
So Sabattus,
In the
so
main
the
owns
other
it.
two towns don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
It's owned by Sabattus, Sabattus is responsible party. Right?
Probably so.
Okay.
Something's gotta be done, or the state, what will end up happening, I think, is the state will come, they're waiting to see what we do. And they've been very patient, they haven't been beating us up. They'll probably come down and say, okay, now things really gotta happen. And force hands, and I hate to even think that way, I'm trying to be positive, because I think everybody in every community really wants the project to happen. So I'm gonna be the optimist and say, I don't wanna go negative, I don't wanna think that way. We're gonna get this project done, fixed, and things are gonna be good, so.
And I think maybe you ought to check with Androscoggin County. I know that they ended up getting a lot of funds with the COVID that they're giving to organizations, and they have money sitting there in their kitty. This isn't Androscoggin problem.
I can speak to that. I have spoken to her numerous times. It is not for funding this. And
Nothing?
They don't fix.
there is a brick grant, but the hoops that have to be jumped through for the brick grant are significant enough that I have the name of a grant writer if we're actually gonna try and pursue that. Because it's nothing that we're gonna be able to do. It's gonna have to be a professional grant writer that does it.
Yes, sir?
Do you guys plan on reapplying for CDF grant, congressional spending grant?
Yes,
Yes.
we have.
Alright.
We just put out one, it was delayed because I'm incompetent on a computer, I guess, but.
That wasn't
Oh,
that one.
Yeah,
That was a
CDS
different, that was a different one.
congressionally delegated spending, so that's a grant we sent to.
Yeah.
So-
So not this year.
JD, our secretary was not here today. He's at work in Washington DC right now. He has been in communication with Susan Collins. We've done some conversations with Angus King's office as well, but there's not a lot of money out there for stuff like this. So it's really an uphill battle, but we're not giving up. It's stuff we're still working on.
The last congressionally delegated spending grant that they applied to, there were two things that they said back to them. And one is that Sabattus got funding recently for the firehouse, so they didn't really want it to go just back to one community. The second thing that they said is they'd love the communities to come back and show that they have some skin in the game, that they're committed to doing this. So bring some money back so that the congressional office says that they're not spending all of it, so they're not paying for all of it, and maybe that'd be better. So really the next step is that they're going to the towns to ask for some of that money.
We have been soliciting money. There's another thing I never thought I'd be doing in the commission, and knocking on every door we can to try to get as much money to the project and having the least impact on the taxpayers of every community.
And I really have to give JD credit, because he's been the one who's borne the brunt of.
And he's really
that.
a sharp guy.
Yeah,
He's done wonders. He's not here. I wish we've had some good people working on this. We really have. You know, a lot smarter than I, that's for sure. And, all right, seeing that, we'll call it a meeting, and plans are here. If anybody wants to come up.
If anybody wants to get in touch